What's up? It is Cody from the Keepers of Nerdom. How y'all doing? Tonight I wanted to talk with you all about one of the more interesting factions in Axis and Allies miniatures. It is, in fact, yes, the German faction, the big crazies of the World War II. And vehicles are on the docket today because I know that those can be way more exciting and interesting than some of the extra little pieces of infantry and whatnot. But I also find that when you play this game and then you realize it's true in war, that vehicles are important, but the infantry are the ones that make the difference, the real difference. Because especially as the war went on, so much of the stuff going on was that the infantry could, in fact, deal with and handle things that the bigger vehicles couldn't necessarily, or they could handle them cheaper as they developed anti-tank weapons that could take stuff out, especially in city battles. Like this is fascinating. And without proper support lines, a vehicle doesn't matter if it runs out of gas. You won't be able to do the things that you need to do. So without the supply lines and the people behind it, it doesn't function, right? And so we're going to start with the basics of the German military for World War II, and this is my almost one of my favorite factions. I usually don't play a whole lot of Germany because I'm usually jumping right into Soviet Union just because they're hilariously antics and silly and fun. And then Great Britain for the exact same reason, because their tanks make no sense. And half the time I'll end up with Germany and the US about the same. So let's look at these, and are they accurate? The first one we're going to look at is this. The SDKFZ 222. This is an armored car. Let's look at him real quick. He is beautiful. Like, honestly, I love this sculpt. This is, I don't remember what generation this was, but just pretty. I love the mesh working up here. Fantastic little armored car. Beautiful thing. And armored cars are fascinating because they're so simple. Let's look at this really quickly. SDKFZ 222 is 8 points, speed 5, defense 2. So it's saying it at least has some armor there, and that's fine. 764 against infantry, 432 against vehicles. Not really a good attack against vehicles, which is fine. It's an armored car. It's machine guns, right? Or really small rounds of anti-tank weapon, but really it looks like machine gun fire as far as this. So high gear 2, if this unit makes its entire move along a road, it gets +2 speed. So that could be speed 8 because you get a bonus +1 anyway on the road once you at least go 2 segments. And then strike and fade 2 in your assault phase. This unit can move at speed 2 after attacking. So, okay, again, we've talked about this before in videos like this. This is inaccurate. This is not good. This is bad. This is bad, poor design. Sorry, I realized I need to grab something for you all. This is very important to our conversation with this. This is just bad design because strike and fade means you have a broken bonkers vehicle and this thing's fast enough as it is. Lower the speed 1, strike and fade maybe 1 at most, but that is a game-breaking concept that really is too strong. And for 8 points, this is a harassment vehicle that is amazing, right? It's really, really good. So is it great for gameplay? Yes. Is it bad for accuracy? I would say yes, because strike and fade 2, like, that's ridiculous. It really should almost be you have to move along the road to do that. You need to reduce the speed a little bit on this thing because that means you are just flying across the battlefield, and who's going to be able to stop you? The answer is unless they go first, they're not stopping that thing. And if they go first, you're just going to hide it anyway, and it's not going to be, yeah, it's just silly. So the next one we have is the SDKFZ 250. It definitely looks a little bit more derpy with the gun on the top. It really makes it look silly. Beautiful otherwise. Yeah. I love the sculpt, but the machine gun really hurts it. It is definitely not good there. So another type of car, but it's really a half track at this point. And so we've got right here, it's 8 points as well in the game. So they are equal as far as value. This is a speed 4, defense 2, less attack all around until you get to the long range, and then only 2 against anti-tank, so that machine gun is just what's represented here. But where this is actually strong is gun transport. This unit has the transport ability, but without the restriction against carrying artillery. So it can actually transport the artilleries up and move them forward, okay? This is really important, and it's accurate because, I mean, what is this thing? It is a carrier. It's meant to get things into position, and it's even got the little hitch on the end. I love that they just put a ball right there because they didn't want to make it too flimsy. So, and high gear too, if it makes its tire move along a road, it gets +2 speed. Absolutely, right? This works. This is way more accurate. What's interesting is which one's stronger, right? Gameplay wise, actually, this is probably more of a benefit unit because it's going to get artillery into place. And that's important because artillery are often very, very slow. You can only move like 2 spaces in the assault phase, so you can't attack. So if you could go grab one of those and do speed 4, high gear 2, plus the extra 1 for moving along the road, you get 7 movement. That is massive for an anti-tank gun. You're going to have it up in place where you need it. So this one's better for harassment of infantry. This one is great for getting the big guns where they need to go. Is this more accurate? I would say yes. This is actually more accurate. It's not nearly as fast and as silly as this thing. But it's also gameplay-wise very, very strong. So the next thing we come to is fascinating. Some of the really basic things in the game. This is actually, I think, the earliest Panzer that they give for the early sets of stuff. It's the Panzer II, okay, Auschwitz, or Osc. I don't know what the Osc means. I always want to say Auschwitz, but that's like, there's the actual like Auschwitz place, but that's not what this is. So I can't even remember what it stands for. Yeah, this is a beautiful model. I'm getting turned over to where Germany is in my tank book, just to make sure we can have an accurate conversation on this thing, because these things are fascinating because the Panzer II came in several different specifications, and we're just going to talk about the Panzer II as a general thing, because OSC, it looks like it would have been, this is OSC, so OSD followed by OSE was real production models. So apparently OSC was like the very beginnings of this thing, and then OSF, that's crazy. And the OSS was actually the Lux. So yeah, we're looking at an early version, I believe, of the Panzer II. And what a beautiful little sculpt, right? And it's got those twin turreted concepts here. It almost looks like a pop tab in here, which is hilarious. Beautiful, beautiful figure. This little guy costs 9 points in game, right? Speed of 3. It has a max speed of, let's see, 24.84 miles per hour. Actually, that's pretty good for a tank, right? Especially of that era. Like, that's no joke. Now, the Lux would have up to 37.26, but it actually gained some armor in some spots and then actually lost some armor in its heaviest. So this actually had heavier armor in spots than the other in like the heaviest places. It's interesting. So defense is 2-2. You know, it's not heavily armored, so I think this is okay. 6.64 against infantry. That's not really great. 4.32 against vehicles. I mean, just stat-wise, this is actually better than a tank. Let that sink in. 1 point less, better than a tank against infantry, and it has the exact same stat against tanks. And so, excellent suspension. It can move through hill hexes as though they were clear hexes. Sure, cool. I mean, yeah, it's a reliable little vehicle, that's for sure. And we'll talk about its beautiful upgrade later on when we do more of these videos. The double shot. This unit can make 2 attacks in your assault phase. When making a defensive fire attack, this unit can make 2 attack rolls against the unit that provoke the attack. So this 6.64 is going to happen consistently, but when you consider that infantry are 4 defense at general and then like artillery are 3s, all of a sudden this is not good, right? This is not going to kill much, even though it gets 2 shots. You play this, you are playing pretty accurate to what it is, but it's also because it's terrible, right? This is not a vehicle you want out on the line. It is seriously flawed. It's a mess, but it's also, you know, you want to play early war. Like, this is stuff going into France even, and that's fascinating to see because that's what they were sending out. I think sometimes people think when they don't understand World War II that the things getting sent into France were these epic Panzer IIIs and IVs, and those were happening already, but it's not what you expect. It was a lot of the most basic things, even Panzer II training vehicles and whatnot, that were more so in horseback. Like it wasn't the Panzer III in crazy amounts right away. You know, they were getting there. Just it's a weird mess. You just have to understand German lines were not made up of the most epic tanks right away, and it's accurate because they're ridiculous. So they won because they punched through and they had anti-tank weapons that could deal with the French tanks that were there, but the French tanks were too slow to get back to get to the point where they could actually defend. And so what we've got here now is the Panzerkampfwagen 38T. What this actually is a Czech design, the LT-35. Is what it's based off of, and then actually the Hetzer would be based off of this as well with a lot of modification. And so really a neat thing to have, and they just label it in this game as, yeah, it's just German, because Germany used a ton of them, and it was a serious tank for its era. This is 1939. This is a start at World War II. So really the Czech actually had better tanks in a way than a lot of what Germany had, right? Because these were capable of dealing with things above their weight in a way. And you'll see that just in the stats. It's only 10 points. It's a speed of 4, which its max speed was 18.63. So it's slower, or it's faster than the Panzer II, but according to the max speed, it's actually way slower. Kind of weird. So not accurate there. Defense is 3.2. So it has up to almost an inch of armor on the front, whereas the Panzer II has up to 1.38 inches. So it's actually got less armor, but for some reason it was regarded as higher defense. So I say this probably isn't really that accurate, that really maybe it's the sloping of the armor, but even then there's very little slope on the Czech tank that's not present in the exact same way as the Panzer II. Like, they're pretty similar as far as what they've got going on here. So I'm not really sure what's going on with that. That's not really that accurate, but anti-infantry 776, really pretty good for a 10 point, and 875 against vehicles. Like that's no slouch. Robust is the unit gets +1 on movement rolls. While disrupted, this unit has speed 1. So it can still move and keep going. And to be fair to it, it was a reliable, from what I understand, tank that did well. But again, it's just one of those tanks that's not accurately represented based on the stats when you compare even to the Panzer II. It doesn't add up. Bizarre. Fun to play. Very fun to play, because this can fill out your slots. Like I have an extra 10 points. I'll run this to run up on destroy vehicle, like little cars and stuff, armor cars. Just get them gone so they can be dead, but also I can deal with infantry too if I need to. 776 is not too shabby. And our last vehicle here is the Panzer III. And let's see here. I don't know. It doesn't say exactly when they full on came about, but they were 1940 was where they really started to take shape. I don't like the brown coloration of this, but otherwise it is a really pretty model. I wish the turret moved a little bit, or like the actual gun up and down, but we're here. It's got numbering on it, which I love that, simple little stuff to add some detail, and that's fun. This is a beautiful vehicle. It's not, as you can tell, a lot of sloping on the armor. There's a little bit of slope here, but very basic. And you've got your front glacis plate, I believe, right there. That's just right underneath the turret and stuff right here. It's basically flat. There's a little bit of curvature to it, but not enough to really make much of a difference there. And so you hit this thing from the front, you're going to be going in, unless they have it at an angle from your shot coming in. They just don't have a whole lot to defend against that. But this thing in the game is the Panzer III Os F, so it's a later model, okay? And you'll see that with the 1940 right here. 13 points, okay? So this is the one later used in the Soviet Union invasion. So that's pretty cool. 3 speed, this would get up to 24.84 miles per hour. And again, this is the OS F, so I'm not sure if that matches up to. No, this is the specifications for the OS F. Yeah, so 24.84, which is the identical max speed to the Panzer II. And the Panzer II has 3 speed as well. So they're actually accurate to one another. This thing has up to 1.18 inches of armor, whereas the Panzer II had 1.38. So it actually has less armor, but they both get 3s. This actually gets 3.3 all around, which is kind of weird because it does still have in specifications some pretty limited spots on its armor. It works when you understand that just some of those smaller spots of armor would have been potentially up, on the actual top of the tank, stuff like that. But it is kind of interesting to note that they're saying even from the back, this is pretty heavily armored. And I'm like, is it though? Is it? I don't know. Kind of weird. So 7.76 against infantry, pretty good. 10.86 against vehicles. So now we're getting into a more serious double digits here when you get up close. And this is where it starts to shine. Its main gun would have been a 37 millimeter, not anything too crazy. Right later on, it even says here to carry 50 millimeter guns. So I'd wonder really what this is reflecting. Is it the 37 or is it really the 50 mil? I don't know. But a fun little gameplay thing, smoke screen once per game at the end of your movement phase. You may put a smoke screen in this unit's hex. It blocks line of sight into, out of, and through its hex. Remove the smoke screen at the end of the turn. So you need to move this thing up into no man's land gameplay-wise. You run it up there and you deploy smoke. And they can't shoot you, they can't see through it, and you can block line of fire. And you could even do that with multiples of these just to do it. Or say it got disrupted the last turn, and you're like, okay, it didn't get damaged. What I'm going to do is pop the smoke so it can stay safe for a turn. And it's just fascinating the things you can do there. One of these things that I would say is this is really just weird. Gameplay wise, because blocking things past you means you can do some crazy shenanigans to block line of fire. So gameplay wise, this gets pretty crazy pretty fast. I have seen this thing completely ruin even my gameplay, where someone just went, I'm popping smoke, and I'm like, I had an entire turn planned out and they knew it and they figured it out and they went smoke, nothing happening. And they had a great turn right there, because all of a sudden I couldn't make shots that I needed to. So overall, is this accurate to the vehicle of its day? I would say for the most part, yes. Maybe the 3 defense on the back would be pushing it a little bit, but it's interesting to note that sometimes it almost feels like somebody came along, did some research, and maybe there's some justification behind this. But I don't know what it is. For like the Panzer Wagon 38T being as good as it is, when really the stats don't actually show that, and actually the Panzer II should be better than it as far as defenses. So bizarre. It's fascinating. I think overall the Panzer II and the Panzer III are pretty accurate to gameplay wise. This little guy right here, accurate. The other one, meh. And this guy right here is, I think these two are the ones that really are not addressed well. So let me know in the comments below. Do you agree with my assessments on these? Are they accurate or are they not? What's your favorite of the ones that we've seen so far? Take care. I've been Cody from Keepers Nerddom. Have a good one. Bye, y'all.